Hello, hello. Welcome to Trail Talk, everybody. We're sure glad you could join us today here at the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center in Duncan, Oklahoma. I'm Edie, and I'm here in we're calling this our classroom studio. You can see we have some teaching things on the wall back here. Yeah, there we go. History Heroes of Oklahoma. And our very special guest today is Mr. Mark Crutcher. Mark, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are really glad to have him with us. And I don't know if you guys can tell or not, but we're going to talk about cowboy hats. I'm sure that's why you tuned in, because we advertise that a lot. Now, I've never really I've had a cowboy hat or two. Do the women refer to them as cowboy hats?
Yes.
Okay, so they're all cowboy hats.
Right. We, as cowboy guys, we tell them they're cowgirls, but they can wear a cowboy hat.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. That explains it. That explains it. So Mark lives here in Duncan, I guess. Yeah, he lives here in Duncan, and he has a store called Crutcher's Western Wear. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. He's getting a little promo action here on the mask today. There you go. Yeah, there we go. Crutcher's Western Wear. So when you're in town, go say hi to Mark over at the Western Wear store. They have, you guys have a lot of really great pieces in there. That little picket fence part, they have some decorating pieces for your home, and then all kinds of beautiful clothing and boots and hats.
Yes.
Lots
of hats.
Lots and lots of hats. So Mark, let me just talk to you for a minute. So you were telling me you grew up and graduated from high school in Chickasha.
Yes.
And so tell us how you got into the Western wear business. Okay, kind of take us through all that.
Okay. In 1968, there in Chickasha, my dad and we started Crutcher's Western Wear. We had shirts, boots, hats, anything Western. And so since 1968, I've been around it all my life. I'm a third generation in the dry good business, what they call, but in 1968, we decided to do nothing but Western. And it's just taken off and just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, honestly, the name Crutchers is synonymous with Western wear. I think just about anywhere you go in Oklahoma, if you say Crutchers, people are going to associate that with your business.
We hope so. We hope so.
Yeah, for real. You're that well known.
We've been around a while.
Yeah, you have. You've stood the test of time for sure.
Yes.
And that absolutely proves the quality of service that you guys provide. Because now listen, guys, there is not a thunderstorm going on, and there are not giants plodding around outside making noises. We have some hopefully repair work being done on our roof right now. So please disregard, okay? We don't have some crazy bowling game or something happening up there, just some people walking around. I say quality of service because when someone buys a cowboy hat, it's not ready to wear necessarily.
Well,
would that be the right way to say that?
You can buy some that you just take off the shelf, but the majority of our people that wears cowboy hats, they kind of like to have them shaped a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So we take another step by using a steamer, and we will shape the brim, the crown. We can do some different shapes and all, but usually that's the next step. They buy a hat and then we hand crease it for them.
Hand crease it. Okay, so you've brought some samples here for us, or examples, I guess I could say. So this is a straw hat as it would come from the manufacturer.
Right. When most the hats come, we call this an open crown.
Okay.
And then usually a flat brim, different sizes of brims. And then we can take them and crease this with using steam to crease this hat. And the next hat over is what we call a crease hat. It can go from this shape to looking like this shape.
Wow. I mean, look at that difference.
Yeah. But we just take a steamer, and that's just water boiled to steam, and we can work the straw or the felt, either one. We've got a felt here.
Right, yeah, we'll look at that one here.
Sometimes the guys like them rolled up, shaped a little different. So that's, but most of the time they come open crown. This is what we call the open crowns.
Okay, now I went to visit Mark at his store, and he was pointing out some things to me. These little holes around the hat, the two you have, they're slightly different. Do those indicate like different years the hats were made? They kind of change them like that, or why would they do something like that?
Well, the first few years back, the straws used to be all solid. And they might have eyelets to get a little air. So the reasoning for these, we call them vents in here, to let air, especially during the summer, if you're wearing a straw, to let the air flow through the hat to kind of keep it a cooler hat. They just design different vents to change it up a little bit for the same guy. He's not having to wear the same hat. Some guys do wear the same hat over and over, but some guys like to change it up a little bit. But the reasoning for this is to get air through during the summertime.
Right. And now, I mean, I don't necessarily come from a family of cowboy hat wearers, you know, but it seems like if somebody wears a cowboy hat, it's like putting on their shoes or putting on their shirt or whatever. I mean, they grab their hat and wear it all the time.
Yeah. We say anybody could wear a hat. You don't have to be a rodeo cowboy or live on a ranch or anything. I think here in Oklahoma, wearing hats is just kind of part of the dress. Not everybody wears one, but you just don't have to be a rodeo cowboy or a rancher to wear a hat. Anybody can wear a hat.
Anybody can wear them because they serve more than just a style. It's more than just a style.
I am hearing more gentlemen come in buying a hat nowadays because their doctors had told them you need something that's got a bigger brim instead of a ball cap, and because of the skin cancers.
You get a lot more protection.
So you get a little more protection from the sun with a little bigger brim, especially during the summertime. So there is some other usage, you know, for the cowboy. Back in the older days, it was shade for them to kind of help keep them cool. But nowadays, it's shade to protect a lot of us from the sun rays.
Right. Which, I mean, you know, and a hat like this, vented, lightweight straw, is probably a fairly comfortable weight or material to have on your head in the summer.
Yeah, during the summer, that's why we kind of go to a straw. It is lighter weight. You do have a little more air. Like I said, with the bench, you get a little more air versus our felts that we'll talk about in just a moment. But the coolness of it being lighter weight for the summer was important on the straws.
Right. Now, these, I mean, it feels pretty stiff to me. Does it take a while to soften this up enough to be able to crease it? And how do you make it stay?
Well, what we do, we have to use the steamer that I mentioned, because if you don't, you can crack or break this straw.
Right.
And so when I heat it with that steam, it gets soft. And then we either, if we roll it up, flatten it out, pull it up and down. And then once we get the crown shaped, same way using that, it stays in shape.
Oh, does it? Once it dries or?
When it cools
Cools,
off, it
cools.
cools off. Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh. Wow, because I mean, I knew these things were stiff, but I hadn't really thought about how much, especially this,
The crown.
how different these two shapes are and how you would do that without, because that does not want to move. So that seems like it would be a,
Well, the steam is really important to do a straw. Because if you're not careful, we say you either crack the straw or break the straw, and then you can't repair it.
right.
So the steam is really important in shaping a straw hat.
Mhm. So are these like machine-made hats? This just occurred to me. How do they get these straw hats?
Okay,
Like this.
this is called shantung straw, and it's wove with a machine. And because when it comes in, it's real thin. By the time they weave that all together, and then they have what they call a Panama straw, but it is actually a straw material, and they weave it through. Some are done by hand, but majority of them are done with the machine nowadays.
And so they, like, let's look at this one that
Okay.
hasn't been shaped. So like this has a little bit of a pattern actually on the straw.
Right, I don't know if it will show there, but you can tell where each one
yeah.
has been woven, each piece of the straw has been woven together.
Right. Very, and it's all one piece? Is it all?
Yes.
There's the crown. No, that's all one.
This is all one whole piece of straw that has been woven together. Yes, ma'am.
And I guess they have a form.
They have a form. When they do that straw to make that, it's usually it's kind of real wet.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
they make it, put it in that form, and then when it dries, it comes out with that shape of an open crown.
And so this is very shiny. Is it coated with something?
This, on a straw hat, they put lacquer, what we call lacquer, and kind of helps, gives it some body too. So that's the shiny part you see is the lacquer that they have put on that straw hat.
Right. Very interesting. I think I never have really sat and looked at a hat closely like this. So how long have straw hats been around? Would cowboys on the cattle drive 150 years ago worn a straw hat?
Well, I would hope they did. I don't know. I know they wore a lot of felt back in those days. I just don't know exactly when the first straw was introduced.
Right. So
but in your
Mark loaned me this book that he keeps at his store, and inside here they have a section on hats, of course, and this page shows a lot of different styles of Western hats, probably back some of the original hats that cowboys wore. A lot of different, I'm looking up there on the screen to see all the different brim shape and crown and everything. But this history here talks about how they used hats to carry water, to, of course,
water
to
their horses.
water
Yes.
their horses, put out a fire. And so I'm wondering if those straw hats, if that's something that they would have been able to
Do back then.
Yeah. I mean, that was just kind of something that kind of popped into my head while thinking about that. I'm not 100% sure about that. Do we have a message, a question?
Yes,
Go ahead.
what is the most popular color people like in cowboy hats? Cindy Smith.
Okay, Cindy, thanks for the question, Cindy. Mark, what would you say the most popular color of cowboy hat is?
Well, if we're talking felts, which a felt hat we haven't talked about, but usually black is the #1 color there. In a straw, it's what we call a natural. This is a natural color, and the majority of your straws are natural color. Now, what they started doing now is started dyeing some of the straws. Well, I don't have one here, but
Right.
in a straw hat, it's mostly all natural color as
Okay.
we see it here.
Right. But I'm sure trends through the years, you've seen things kind of come and
Come and
go.
go. Yes,
But
ma'am.
these have probably stood the test of time.
The natural color of the straw is still the
Mhm.
number one
Yeah,
color.
yeah. That's a really, uh, really nice. This is really interesting to me. I'm really enjoying, and I think just being able to handle one,
One.
I looked at them in stores, but to really touch it and to think about, the material and how it is, and then that you shape it. So, of course, you couldn't bring your steamer, but kind of describe what that machine looks like.
Okay, what I have is we put in about 3 gallons of water in a container, and we heat it up to about, I believe it's 200 and something degrees to make steam.
Mhm.
And I have it on a switch, so when I step on that switch, that steam will come up out of the vent that we have, and I just heat either the straw or the felt, either one. And then we work it. We take our hands and we either turn the brim up, depending on what the customer wants. And then, but I have constant steam all day long.
Mhm. So is it like a narrow kind of long thing, or is it a round? What is it?
Well,
What does it shoot out like?
We have a vent, we call it an aluminum vent that comes up, and it's got a slot in the top of it that steam comes up out and comes out
Straight.
towards me.
Oh,
Or
okay.
I put the hat there and put the steam around
so
the hat.
You're able to control a lot.
Right, I control
exactly
how
where-
much steam that I use.
Yeah, and where you want it
Where I want it to
directed.
be, yes, ma'am.
So how long did it take you? I'm going to guess that these are harder to shape than felt. How long did it take you to, I'm going to say, master the straw hat?
Well, Edie, I still haven't mastered it yet. I started working in our stores when I was 14.
Okay.
So I've been around the steamer and shaping hats for quite a long time. One thing I can tell you, down at my store, I get a lot of practice.
Right.
So you get better as you practice.
Mhm.
And so I've been at it for a long time.
Mhm.
I have had some guys that I know has taught me some stuff.
Right.
That had a gentleman that worked for us here in Duncan, and I've learned some stuff from him. And every day I learn a different trick.
Mhm.
Well, let me try this. Well, this works this way. So
Mhm.
I'm not a master, but I get a lot of practice. I'll
Are
put
there-
it that way.
Are there some crown shapes that are more difficult than others? Or you just kind of learn
Well,
how to manipulate it?
depending on how the guy wants it shaped, sometimes he's kind of particular the way he wants his crown to look. And not everybody wears what we call this a cattleman's crease.
Okay.
We've got some hats, we'll show you that. An old crease that years ago, they used to call it Tom Mix crease. Now they call it a Gus crease because of the Lonesome Dove
Oh,
Gus
right. Yes.
movie.
Mhm.
So they changed the name, but there is some creases that are kind of hard to do. It takes a little longer to do some, but the cattleman's crease, we got one we call a brick crease, and it looks like you could take a brick and set right in the middle. That's pretty easy to do
Right.
at all, but there's some creases, takes a little more time than
Mhm.
others.
And so does it take an hour to do a hat, or?
Normally it don't, unless the gentleman is that picky. you
Oh,
know.
okay. Okay. So like, say you started here and you went to
To
that,
here.
about how long would that take you?
Probably to get to here, 15, 20 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I mean,
Wow, that's really
it's pretty
quick.
quick. And like I said, it all depends on how, I hate to say picky, but how
Well.
picky a customer is
Mhm.
on his hat. But
Mhm.
usually, sometimes we can work 30 minutes, 45 minutes. But normally on the felt hats go quicker
Right.
than what a straw is, because you got to be a little more particular and not break that straw, as I mentioned
Right.
before.
Right. Well, we may have exhausted my questions about these straw hats. I don't know. Sometimes I think of things later, but let's go ahead and talk about those felts now.
Okay.
I'll set these over here and there we go.
So I brought 2 felt hats.
Uh-huh.
The way, a lot of times how we get them from the factory. Now, the felts are made of beaver pelt.
Okay.
So that is got actually beaver in it. And how we determine how much beaver's in it is by, there's X's in these hats. I don't know if they can you
Okay.
see the
Yeah.
X's
Hold that up
up
there.
there? There's
Tina-
X's.
Right in here. There you go.
Can you see the X's?
I'm trying to get some light
better
on it.
On it, maybe because of the light. But what it is,
There, can you zoom in on it there now with the light on it? I can't tell if they can
It's
see
got-
them or not. Yeah, it's hard, but if you look inside the brim of the hat, one side, it has got a label of, but it says 5 and then X's of beaver.
right.
And
Right.
so a 5X beaver, is that
yeah.
right?
So
Okay.
what it is the more X's in a hat, and they'll
Uh-huh.
go from a 2X plumb to 100X.
Oh,
So your 100X
Holy cow.
is more pure,
uh-huh.
the beaver in it, but they are made with beaver pelt in
So
it.
what else is with it?
Well,
to make
sometimes
felt?
they'll mix a little rabbit, for the cheaper hats, they put a little wool in it.
So it's the felt like this it's all natural fibers
Yes, ma'am.
and I guess animal fibers.
Animal, except for the wool, when they put, wool
Uh-huh.
would be
And so
from
it's an
animal
an
too.
animal fiber.
Right.
Interesting. I had
Yeah.
no idea that that's
And,
what a
yeah.
felt hat was.
So that's how you kind of determine the quality of the hat, by the
Okay.
amount of X's that's
Okay.
inside on a felt.
Mhm.
Now on the straw, you can't use that X in that.
I'm
in that
guessing
straw.
the more X's would mean a more expensive hat.
Better hat, right.
And well, better. So it's going to
More.
withstand the elements.
Right.
And all of that too, I
Yeah,
guess.
pure the felt.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so we get these just like we did the straw.
Mhm.
And then we heat them, shape them same way. Use the steam, and you can shape that crown. Here's one that we brought in.
This is actually pretty stiff,
It is
isn't
pretty stiff,
It's a lot stiffer
Yeah.
than I thought it would
Would
be.
be.
Huh.
but
Interesting.
the felts, we say are pretty forgiving. So if I
Uh,
kind of shape one and the guy said, oh, I don't like it that way, I
Mhm.
can heat it again and pull it
Pull it.
down or do something different. And it's harder to do with the straw.
mhm.
But the felts, we kind of got a rule of thumb that you wear your felt hat after Labor Day. From Labor Day to Easter, you wear a felt hat.
Ladies, you'll think of wearing your white shoes.
Right.
With those same rules.
And then we have the straws. We say you wear from Easter to Labor Day
Okay,
due to the weather.
right.
But I have some guys that will wear a felt all year long. So
Well,
it gets hot, but they
right,
wear them all year
Right,
long.
well,
Yeah.
I guess they like them for a reason,
Right.
so,
Now, your felts are a little heavier. I don't know
Yes.
if you picked that up. to
yes, it
tell. It's
is.
a little,
I think it's quite a bit heavier.
little heavier, but we say you're wearing them during the coldest part of the year
Mhm.
and all. So,
Mhm.
yeah, and you notice there's no vents or
Oh, there's
outlets,
not.
anything. Yeah.
There's not, is there?
No.
Huh.
So that kind of keeps the cold air out, but if you're wearing it during the summer and all, it does get hot because there's no air coming through it.
Right, so all of a sudden I'm thinking about those original cowboy hats again, or at least the ones, during cattle drive days. Would those have been made from
Yes,
felt?
yes.
Really?
It would have been, had beaver pelt
Uh-huh.
in nails back in those days.
Huh.
And probably,
A leather hat would just be too much, right?
well, yeah,
That'd be heavy.
that would be heavy to
Uh-huh.
be using, but you're usually on those cattle drives that you were talking about. It's usually, most of the time they do wear a felt. They wore a felt most of the time.
I think that maybe we had a question about, are these waterproof like this? Or is there some kind of treatment that you would need to do for a felt hat?
Well, some guys will put waterproofing on them. Now, they will withstand some of the water.
Well, I mean, beaver,
Right, right.
you know,
yeah.
that makes sense to me.
Normally what they usually do when they get real wet, the best thing to do is just set it down, not flat, but set it on something, let it dry. And then we come back and reshape it, but
Because it will lose some of its
it
shape.
will
when
lose
gets
some of the
soaked.
shape
Okay.
if you get them totally soaked.
Mhm.
But majority of the time, they are let me say water resistant instead of
Yeah,
waterproof.
Yeah.
Because to only make it waterproof, you gotta seal that
Uh-huh.
felt up.
Now, I have seen, they make like little covers, don't they? Little
Right.
like rain covers for
Right.
hats.
They
that-
make a clear plastic cover that will go over the hat. And some guys use that
Mhm.
on their good hats and all.
Right. Does a straw hat get messed up if it
Straw
gets
hat's
wet? Not so
does not
much.
have that much problem with the water
Mhm.
like a felt hat does.
Mhm. I figure that lacquer might help a little
Right,
bit
that
too.
lacquer does seal part of that up to
Mhm.
keep the water from soaking into that straw.
Yeah. So, so you, do you sell about the same amount, straw and felt?
Well, I usually sell a few more felts because I got a little longer selling period.
Okay,
From
yeah.
when you start thinking from Labor Day to Easter,
Yeah.
and then from Easter to Labor Day.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, black hats have been around forever. Number one
That's-
selling color,
Mhm.
number one hat right there.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Is this kind of the same shape as the straw that you brought? Are they pretty similar?
Well, this one is not rolled up. If you'll look at that brim, it's not rolled up quite as high.
Okay, that's,
But
yeah.
we could make either one look like the other one,
Mhm.
but with using our steamer.
Is this a cattleman's crease?
This is, right, this is
okay.
Cattleman's. I just
Look at
brought,
me, I'm getting the.
there you
names
go,
down
you're
on-
learning.
Heck
You're
yeah.
learning.
Heck
Now I just gotta bring you down to the store and teach you how to shape one.
That's it. That's the thing right there. Let me ask you, do you wear gloves?
No, ma'am.
You don't?
No.
So does the steam hot enough to burn you? Steam burns they hurt.
They do, they
Okay.
do, and I do mine every once in a while.
Uh-huh.
You just gotta learn where that steam is, because it will burn your hand. Now,
Right.
some guys do. I know some guys use a glove. I
Uh-huh.
just always use my bare hands
Uh-huh.
and all, but every once in a while, I'll feel that steam
Yeah,
and jerk
yeah.
it away from there.
I bet you do. Now, do you sell, is a 5X beaver, is that kind of the norm, kind
Well,
of the average kind of
uh,
hat, or?
We say anywhere from a 5, we have 5, 6X, 7X, they have 10X, 15X, 20X. It's just, but for a ranch hand or for just normal wear, usually my 5 to 7s
Okay,
is my number one selling felt. Because it's not a least expensive felt, but it's not the best expensive
right,
felt.
right.
So a 5 or 7, you'll see more guys probably wearing 5Xs and 7Xs most of the time.
And is the higher the X, do they get heavier? Does the weight change much?
No, one thing what you'll notice with a better quality hat is when you look at this felt, I don't know if they could see it on the camera or not, but your better quality hats are real thin.
Okay.
I mean, if I'd have had one to bring, but it's real thin, so it seems a little lighter.
Ah.
But it's because it's more pure, the felt. They didn't
Mhm.
blend anything else in with it, where this 5X is still beaver, but they had to blend some other stuff with it.
So it's a little bit thicker.
It's a
than-
little bit thicker,
Mhm.
yes.
And how long would a fella who wears this hat every day, how long would that hat last him?
Usually, depending on how he wears it, where he wears it. Normally, we see guys buying a felt hat. Some guys can wear them 2 years. Most of the time, it's 1 year. Now, on the straws, that's kind of the way it is. One season, we call it,
Uh-huh.
because it's hot, it's sweaty. They get dirty. We've got to have.
Yeah, we got one.
Yeah,
we're
we've
gonna
got
show you
one. I'll
guys,
show
yeah.
you about a straw. But most of the time on his hat that he wears every day,
Uh-huh.
he'll usually buy a new one every year. Some guys will take one and they might could wear it 3 years.
Yeah.
It just depends where they're wearing it, how they take care of it.
Mhm. And so how much of an investment, I mean, for someone to get, say they get 2 hats a year,
Okay.
what kind of a financial investment are they?
Well,
Putting into it.
these 5X, like I said, your better hats are, you're going to be looking probably somewhere around $200 for your 5Xs. Now, they do have least expensive hats, but they start taking the felt out of it and putting wool in it, is what we
Uh-huh.
say.
Mhm.
So, those are going to be anywhere from about, you could start $75
Mm.
to $100 on a 2 or 3X that's got wool in it. But your better hats are going to last longer.
Yeah.
The more felt you have in it, they're just going to last longer.
Mhm.
But like I said, when we get to some of these old hats I've got here to show you, some of the guys around in our county has left me. They've got a lot of wear on them,
Yeah,
but it don't
yeah,
take
some-
long.
So what about a straw? How much? would a person spend on those?
Straws now are, you're going to be looking probably $80 to $100 on a straw.
Okay, all right.
But
It's part of your work attire. I mean, really, if these guys are wearing them every day and they're
Right.
working in them, everything, it's part of their uniform, I guess you could even say.
that's a good way to put it.
And
Yes.
so it's just an investment back in, into their work. Now, one other thing I want to ask you about, these hats all have just a little black kind of ribbon looking thing around them. These, I guess this is a felt thing. This is the felt hat's a little more decorative. It's got a little kind of belt buckle looking feature on it right here. So do people like get fancier
Right.
on these hat
Right.
bands?
Right. Yeah, hat bands. I
hat
was
band.
waiting for you to say, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
This is the hat band. And most of the time on a felt, they use, I don't know if you noticed.
Is it felt?
It is felt, right. And
Oh,
then-
wait, before we go
Okay.
there, is this one piece like the straw?
Yes,
This
yes.
is one piece also.
Right,
Okay, all
right.
right, thanks.
And then even on the straws, they do have some hat bands that does have buckle sets.
Okay,
I just didn't bring one out.
yeah,
But some people will take these off, either off the straw or the felt, and put on a fancy. One may have conchos or something on it.
uh-huh,
Or I have some guys that might, in the past, I know have killed a long rattlesnake. And they have taken that rattlesnake and made a rattlesnake hat band.
uh-huh.
So it's preference. I've seen all kinds of hat bands made. Some that's used leather and braided leather together
Yeah,
and all. So on some of the straws, they'll use a ribbon. They used to use ribbons on felts,
uh-huh.
and now they started using the felt hat band.
I think I've even seen some like beaded, like Native American.
Yes, beaded.
Uh-huh,
Yes,
hat
ma'am.
bands too. As a matter of fact, we've had some Native American drummers and singers for dances that
Uh-huh.
I've noticed that they've worn black. Now that I'm thinking about it, they wore black
Hats, but
hats
they use a
with,
beaded
uh-huh,
hat band.
with a beaded hat
Yeah.
band. So, yeah, I can, you can personalize these
Yes,
as much,
ma'am.
even if you buy your basic black
Black
felt
hat,
hat,
And then
put your own touch on it.
your own touch to it. Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh. And so, I know you probably get some guys that people might refer to as like a drugstore cowboy, somebody who they like the Western wear look, but they're not Western. It's a style thing.
Right, right.
Only a
They-
style thing.
They might not live on a farm.
Uh-huh.
They might not ranch, or they might not rodeo or any of that. And as you referred to them as drugstore cowboys.
Right,
We-
and I mean no disrespect.
Right, I was gonna say, we still call them cowboys.
Yeah.
But everybody has their preference,
Uh-huh.
you know, but you could take this one hat and personalize it and make it look totally different than a
Mhm.
regular cowboy hat.
Right, right. Well, my goodness, I have learned a lot about cowboy hats. This has been very informative,
good.
Mark, very informative. And like in a week's time, about how many cowboy hats would you say you sell? Is there a time when you sell more or less? Is there like a cowboy hat season?
Well, Edie, I'll tell you, you would think, well, I'd sell felts during the winter,
Uh-huh.
straws during the summer most time. I sell them by either way. Sometimes I'll sell a black hat right in the middle of July.
Huh.
So we sell quite a few hats. Right now, we're fixing to get in our straws. We'll get them in March, getting ready to convert from felts to straws.
So your inventory shifts a little bit.
A little bit,
Okay.
yes. But this old hat right here,
Uh-huh.
old black hat, stays around all year round.
Uh-huh.
He's around all
That's
year
a
round.
dependable,
Mhm.
one right there. Well, okay, so you brought some very interesting hats that you're gonna share with us, and I'm pretty excited to get these guys up here.
Why don't we start with that straw?
Okay.
This
there you
is, if you can just imagine
Yeah.
a straw starting out looking like this, and this cowboy,
go. Before
and after. I couldn't tell you what all he did, but you can tell they get pretty worn.
Uh-huh.
But they'll all start out looking like that, and not all of them ends like this.
Yeah,
But this
yeah.
hat, these hats that we're fixing to show you, the straw and felts, we could say they got character. You know, if that hat could talk and tell us some
Oh,
stories,
right.
some good stories.
Okay, so I'm seeing something on this hat that I wasn't aware of. So there's a wire.
There's a wire, yes.
And so there's a wire in the edge of this one
It's
too.
of that straw, on the
Okay.
straws.
Uh-huh,
it
on the
is,
straw.
yeah.
Very
He's
interesting.
just flat wore that one down to.
And what do you
Sure.
think happened there? It looks
Well,
like
I
something's
think what
melted.
happened, it kind of broke loose and he took glue, hot glue, and glued it back
glued
down.
it
Now,
back.
I don't know
That
that.
way it stayed, but I'm sure that's taking it off, pulling it off and putting it back on just by the front right there.
Could be, or he swatted an old cow. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
these
That's true.
hats, you just never know what they've been through and what they
Mhm.
do.
And
But
so is this what a hat might look like if it's been worked in for a year
I would think so.
or a
Yes, ma'am.
season?
Or a season.
A season? That's pretty fast wear.
Because what happens, during the summer, it's hot. and-
Right,
And we
right.
sweat in them, so the
Yeah.
dirt and dust collects to them.
Yeah, and that's gonna break it down.
Right.
It's gonna
right.
break it down faster when that happens. But yeah, is this kind of a special band, do you think, or just
This was, looked like a leather
with some stitching on it? or
stitching
something?
on it that came on that hat, that band come on that hat.
Oh, okay.
So-
Okay, so just a little different style. And the vents, I
Right.
don't know if you can tell, but the vents, it looks like they're a little bit more.
There's a little more vented
Uh-huh.
than the ones that I brought.
Yeah.
A lot
So,
more air, you get a lot more air to it.
right. And actually the weave is a little bit different also
Yes,
on this. Boy, I'm gonna start looking at cowboy hats and pointing at all these little differences to
There you go.
myself now that I'm seeing all this. Very interesting.
I
Okay.
think you'll start noticing hats more now.
I think
since
I
you-
will.
On
Yeah.
guys wearing them.
Yeah. All right. And this was the cattleman's.
That was the cattleman's crease, but you can tell, I don't know if he run into I don't have a clue. But
Not much tell.
you can tell it's been broke down
Yeah.
some.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of maybe grabbing it right
could
there
be,
too.
yes.
That's another common place to grab them, I would think.
Just
So,
a lot more character to
yeah,
it.
that's right. That is right. Okay, which one you want to go?
Let's
to?
just bring all three up,
Okay. that'll
set them up
work.
there. These are our felts. There's some different creases.
Uh-huh. Oh, they don't have the weight. I was gonna try to see if we could tell the weight. These seem thicker
Yeah.
than those ones.
Those new ones.
Do they get thicker?
Well, you
after a
gotta
little wear?
remember, he's wore this, he sweat in it, there's a lot more dirt and stuff on it,
So
so
it
it may
just-
seem heavier, yeah.
Mhm.
But they all got different characters,
Yes.
characteristics to them. This is, I went back to that old Tom Mix or
Gus.
Gus Crease.
Okay,
And
I see that now.
can you-
I recognize
If
that.
y'all remember the movie.
Uh-huh,
And
Lonesome
all,
Dove.
and another thing you notice, if we can show it right here, see how the brim is flat on the
On
new
the
hat.
end, on the-
Now look at this one, after he's wore it, it's probably been wet 2 or 3 times.
And it's.
You
curved
kind of
up.
get the curve to it.
Mhm.
I always tell people, well, that cowboy rather have that water run off his nose than down the collar of his shirt.
Yeah, that makes sense. That
That's
makes a lot.
just something.
I've thought about that because we've taught about, teaching kids about the purpose of the cowboy
Boy
hat.
hat.
And I've often thought about that running off the back of their hat and going right
Down their shirt.
Yeah.
They rather come down around in front of their face or tilt their head
Yeah.
where it's running off
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah, that makes a lot
Yeah.
more sense to me.
And everybody wears a crease a little different.
Okay,
You can tell what this
Uh-huh.
cowboy did. He all would probably put it on grabbing that way.
right.
But that hat, see now, that's a leather braided band
Uh-huh,
that he's had on this hat.
yeah.
Um,
And this hat has vents.
Yeah, now this is, probably went back and punched holes, because he might have been wearing this hat during the summer, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
By judging by what I call sweat stains, I don't know if it was,
Well, yeah.
see the sweat
uh-huh,
stains
yeah.
in there.
You can see the discoloration he's
Right,
referring
and
to.
the dirt, and that's probably dirt. and all.
Uh-huh,
So probably this cowboy probably wears his hat all year long.
his felt.
Right, his
Mhm.
felt, and he put the eyelets in it, or the holes in it, to get a
Mhm.
little more air into it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And this is a well-worn, I mean, we're talking slick and shiny up here
Now,
even.
These hats were probably, I'm going to say probably took 2 years or more to get wear like this. They just didn't
Mhm.
do it. And I don't know if I'll show it to you and then we'll see. You can tell where he's always grabbed it there. See how,
Mhm.
where it wore the felt down?
I was gonna say, was this a brown felt?
No, it was black.
Oh,
When you
my
turned it over,
goodness.
yeah.
So
when you
it
turn-
bleached out.
Yes, yeah. This hat, he just didn't do that in 1 year. I mean,
Yeah.
I imagine it took him probably 2 years or 3
Yeah,
to make it look like that.
Uh-huh. Boy, what a hat though. My goodness. I love that one.
Yeah.
I can just imagine, like you say, the stories.
Well, I think I pointed out to you when you was in the store, my hat collection up on the
Yes,
wall.
yes.
I have a lot of guys that brought their hats in, and we just put their name and put them up on the wall, and people walk in and say, oh yeah, that's old so-and-so's hat. He's wore it, I can tell he's wore that hat, all the same hat over and over and over, the shape and all.
Uh-huh.
So we got some old hats that, man, if they could talk,
Yeah.
would tell some good stories.
So that comment you just made, that's kind of interesting to me that someone would recognize someone's hat because that person has worn that
Same
same
shape
shape forever,
for a
probably.
long time. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes, ma'am. Like I said, we can point out several of them that's up on my wall
Mhm.
that some guys never change the style.
Right.
They just wear the same style over and over.
So are these brims a little smaller?
Right,
Little
now,
narrower?
these brims are, now this new one I brought, I don't know if you can tell, but it's bigger brim.
Uh-huh,
So the brims have started getting bigger, say, over the last 2-3 years.
Oh, okay.
They come from brims on felt hats start at 2 7/8, and now they're making them up to 5 inches. This is only a 5-inch brim.
Wow. That's
So,
quite a bit bigger.
But not everybody wears,
Yeah.
it depends on the person. if he wears a big brim or a small brim. I think the brims I brought here are all 4-inch, which
Okay.
used to be the norm.
Mhm.
And now we're at 4 1/4, 4 1/2, 4 7/8, 5 inches.
Wow.
And I don't know, one of these days may get bigger.
Who knows? Who knows if that's gonna stop?
That's true.
Oh, you've probably seen that happen before, though,
Oh,
haven't you? They get bigger and then they get,
then yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
It's all this,
Cycle around what we see.
yeah.
Um,
And okay, so this is a little wider brim
That's a little wider.
than these guys.
uh,
It actually, this looks like a bigger hat
Okay.
altogether.
It was. Now this size, I think this, and the size of the hat that a guy wears makes a little bit of difference. I think this hat, I think this leather sweatband, we call them leather sweatbands. And,
Okay,
but I
right.
think this hat was a size, if this gentleman, I
Oh,
can
it's
remember, it's
gone.
a size 8,
Which is pretty big,
which
isn't
is
it?
huge. Well, big.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
Because my most common sizes are 7, 7/8, 7 1/4.
uh-huh.
And then you have 3/8, a half, 5/8, 3/4, and then this 8. So,
And so when someone measures for a hat size, the only thing I know to compare it to, like for, someone who's never worn a cowboy hat, is maybe when you graduate from high school, they measure your head for your cap and gown.
right.
Is it the same
That's
thing?
the way I'll have people call and say, "Well, how do I determine what size I wear?" And a lot of times I'll tell them either take a real soft tape measure, just measure around the center of your head. And then we have a chart that will take that in inches and convert it to what size a hat. you
And
would
so
wear.
is there a unit of measure?
Yes, yeah, each size is so many inches. I don't have that chart with me to tell you what it
Well,
is.
but is it like where does this, let's see, what do they call it? A shoe? It's like a last?
Well,
Isn't that-
yeah.
Is it kind of the same thing, a last? for
Right,
hats?
see, this is what we call the leather sweatband.
Uh-huh,
Okay, I don't know what size this one is, but what they determine is how many inches
mm-hmm,
around here is what size you would wear in a 7/8, 7 1/4,
right.
7/3. So we get the measurement in inches,
Mhm.
and then I have a chart that would convert that into what size hat you would
Right. I
wear.
find that kind of interesting, don't you, that they wouldn't just say, okay, well, here's a 12-inch hat.
Right, yeah.
Here's a
Right.
10 and a half inch hat.
In in hats, they start 6 3/4 is
Mhm.
where the men start, and go up to 8, and then some even bigger. But
Mhm.
the majority of them we sell is in the range from a 7 to 7 3/8.
Okay, so, when you purchase a hat for someone else, is it better to bring that person in? Okay, good question. When you purchase a hat, like if I wanted to buy a hat for my husband, would it be better to bring him in and have him measured there? Or could I secretly measure his head in his sleep?
Right, well, it all
Or,
depends
I
on,
mean-
do you want to surprise him? You
Yeah.
know? So if you don't want him to know about it, secretly measure
Bring a
around his
hat, a
head,
cap or something that he,
that, or
wears or-
bring that in inches. If you can get that measurement, bring it in inches. I can just about tell you what size hat he will wear.
uh-huh,
And all. But sometimes we say it's kind of hard for a woman to buy a man's hat. Kind of like us men trying to buy shoes for ladies.
Right.
Sometimes we don't have a clue.
and
So-
it'd be a little bit harder too, because if you're paying to have something shaped and then turns out he doesn't like it, or it doesn't look right
Right.
on his head, if he hasn't had a cowboy hat before, so,
Well, in that case, a felt, as I mentioned earlier, is pretty forgiving. We can
Right.
change. Now, the straw, it's a little tougher to change, but it is possible.
So I was thinking about buying a hat for women. You said the men's hat start at a certain size. So are there different hats like this that come in that you would sell to women?
Well, right now, the ladies, especially in the felts, are doing a lot of color hats besides just black.
Uh-huh.
They're usually a flat brim like this, a little shorter crown,
Okay.
but they leave them open.
Uh-huh.
But they're doing some of them in colors, lavenders, the pinks, yellow, blue. Man, there's a rainbow of colors that the
Felt,
ladies do.
the felt or the straw or both?
Mostly in the felt. Mostly in the straw, they're still back to this natural
Uh-huh.
color.
Mhm. And so are the sizes just, the crown is a little smaller, the size of the circumference
Right.
here a little smaller? Is that how they do kids' hats too?
Yes, well, on kids, they make a hat that's got an elastic band in it. We call one size fits all.
Oh,
So when they put it
that's
on,
smart,
but
yeah.
in ladies' hats, they normally do like a extra small, small, medium, and large, extra large.
Okay.
So in a lady, it's just process elimination. Which size do you need, a small or, and then in our, but I do have some ladies will wear a black hat or a men's hat,
Mhm.
depending on their size of their, that they need.
Right, right. Very interesting. Wow. I hope you guys have learned as much about cowboy hats as I have. I am just, my head is just thinking, wow, there is so much information here. Mark, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
so much.
Now, you need to come down and shape some.
Yeah, I do. I need to go down there and see if I can figure out how to shape a cowboy.
Maybe we could do that sometime, do a
we-
show and
yeah.
let you shape
Yeah,
the
there
hat.
you go. We did cowboy crafts on Trail Talk yesterday, and we made little cowboy hats out of paper plates.
Ooh,
And
that's cool.
my coworker Mary made a very interesting cowboy hat that had. Anyway, it turned out very funny. We all had a big laugh about it. So I can make a cowboy hat out of paper plate, but whether or not I can shape a straw one or a felt one remains to be seen.
You just have to come down to the store
I'm
and
gonna
try.
have to go down there and try it. And you know what? Don't you guys think we should have Mark back and maybe he could bring some cowboy boots or jeans? I mean, I think there's all kinds of Western wear that we could learn a lot about. And so what do you think, Mark? Would you be willing to
We
come
will
back?
sure try to come and do
Good.
that.
All right. Very good. Well, guys, I think that's about a wrap on Cowboy Hat Trail Talk today. So, Mark, whenever we sign off, we just say happy trails to everybody. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, guys, we'll see you next time. Happy
Happy trails to
trails.
everybody.
Bye.